Hello everyone. Today we are talking about the 3 steps you need to fix your chronic pain. It's as simple as that. There's just 3 things that you need to do, and we're going to talk about all 3 today. So let's get started. So step number 1 to fixing your chronic pain is figuring out where your pain is actually coming from. So often our pain, where we feel pain, where we feel like we're having our issues, is not actually where we're having issues. And so this is such an important step that people miss. And having experienced this myself and having worked with so many people with their chronic pain, this is not something that we talk about often enough, and doctors don't typically look at this. If you have a really good physical therapist, you might get this, but they may miss some things too. So this process is so important. It's also why I created the free assessment guide to fixing your chronic pain, which is a full body free guide to figure out where your pain is actually coming from, which is step number 1 to fixing your chronic pain. So, for example, let's say you have lower back pain. Yes, your lower back might be part of this. More often than not, though, there are probably some feet issues, ankle issues, hip issues, and mid-back rotation issues. That is not talked about, probably not even looked at. The feet are almost always involved, and no one looks at feet, looks at your toes, look at your toe mobility. So this is such an important step. If you do not do this, you will not fix your pain long term. And I know you don't want to just fix your pain once and have it come back a few months or a couple of years later. So step number 1, you have to figure out where your pain is actually coming from. This could be one spot. It is typically not. It is typically usually a few things going on in the body that we really need to address, which leads us to step number 2, which is fix your issues. So step number 2 is really now that we figured out where our issues are, now we need to fix them. So we need to start with mobility. So there's 2 parts to fixing your pain. So we've figured out where it is. Now we need to use mobility work, which is step number 1. Use mobility work to fix your movement pattern issues. There are always movement pattern issues associated with chronic pain. There is something structurally that is no longer right with our body that we need to fix. And this happens to almost everyone because we're super active when we're young, and then as we grow up, we become less active, we're sitting a lot more, we have jobs, we have responsibilities, we start sleeping in weird positions. All of these things in life that just happen that if we're not super aware of, or we just don't think about, like our feet and our toes, then we just lose these things. You know, that old saying of if you don't use it, you lose it certainly applies here. So we lose a lot of our natural movement patterns that cause us to feel really good and move really well, that over years and decades we lose these things, and then we develop poor movement patterns and compensations that ultimately lead us to chronic pain issues. So we need to use mobility work to fix our movement patterns. Then part 2 of this is we need to strengthen and use resistance training to strengthen these new movement patterns, which will also help to fix any muscle imbalances, which is also usually a huge part of this. So we need to strengthen these movement patterns. This involves a lot of unilateral training, a lot of stability style resistance training. This is going to be really different for every single person and what this looks like, but overall, unilateral training and stability training are certainly always involved. Functional strength training of some sort, depending on what's going on, where our issues are, is going to really depend on how we structure this and program it. So that's part 2. So we need to, 1, figure out where our issues are coming from. 2, we need to fix those issues. Now, that's not just it. Step number 3, which is also a huge piece of the puzzle that most people miss, is we need to reduce internal systemic inflammation. And I'm not talking medication here, although it can be used temporarily in a lot of cases, in certain cases. Definitely talk to your doctor about this. But we need to figure out the root cause of what's causing our internal systemic inflammation. And this could be a lot of things. This could be anything from gut issues, which are hugely prevalent and I see across the board with people who have chronic pain. Gut issues are just running rampant across the community at large, but definitely in the chronic pain world, gut issues are so common. So we need to find all of these issues. So whether it's gut issues, adrenal issues are super common because our body's been under so much stress for so long. Toxins are a really big contributor to this, hormone imbalances. The liver is a huge part of this, pretty much always. And we just don't think about this. This is not really talked about. Physical therapists and doctors and pain specialists aren't really talking about this piece. And if you fix your structural issues, that's great. That's gonna help. But you have to fix your internal inflammation if you're going to fix the pain and keep it away long term. So once again, it is figure out where these issues are, and this can be done through a variety of systems. This can be done through a bunch of testing. This can be done through questionnaires with a highly qualified professional, someone who really knows what they're doing and has worked with clients, doing all of this, investigative work. And you really want someone who's going to stick with you and really investigate and really dig, because chances are, once again, it's not just one thing. It's usually a couple things. And the blaringly obvious issue, like gut issues, it may not just be that. And that may be a piece of the puzzle, but it may not be the whole puzzle itself. So we need to figure out what is the root cause. So what deep down is really causing all of this internal inflammation. And then 2, we need to fix it. And that can be done through just changes through our diets, depending on what's going on. This is super individualized, but nutrition, supplements, lifestyle changes, these can all be a piece of this puzzle. So once again, 3 steps to fixing our chronic pain. 1, we need to figure out structurally, where is our pain actually coming from? Is it just where our problem area is? Probably not. But figure out where it is. Once again, I have a free functional assessment guide that takes you through a series of testing that is very easily you can do on yourself to figure out where your pain's actually coming from. Step 2 is fixing those issues through mobility work and then strengthening our new movement patterns. Step 3 is figuring out what's going on inside. Why do we have so much internal inflammation? What is causing that internal inflammation? What is the root cause of that inflammation? And then addressing those issues through nutrition, supplements, and lifestyle. Thanks so much for joining me.